Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Just Cause 3? The sequel to Just Cause 2, surprising nobody ever, brought to you by Avalanche, who have been quite busy this year. They recently released Mad Max, which came to somewhat mixed reviews. I thought it was alright, although it did suffer from open world syndrome. The question is, I suppose, does Just Cause 3 suffer from the same, and how much of an advancement is it over the rather excellent Just Cause 2? You will find out very shortly. But before we begin, let's talk about options and performance, shall we? So, head over to graphics, and unsurprisingly, it being Avalanche, there's a lot to like here if you are a PC gamer. Full screen on or off, inexplicably no borderless windowed mode, not really sure why there isn't one of those. VSync on or off, of course, anisotropic filtering available up to 16 times, crank that up. Resolution options, plenty here to see. The standard resolutions on display, nothing out of the ordinary. AA, you've got FXAA as well as a couple of variants of SMAA. I did find that regular SMAA is not too taxing on the system. This one, a little bit more so. There's your gamma slider, texture quality, water tessellation, LOD, as well as shadow quality, your screen space ambient occlusion, motion blur, we turn that off of course, edge fade, global illumination, screen space reflections, and bokeh depth of field. Some of these I could not even tell you what they do, and no tooltips, unfortunately, to give you that kind of information. I've got it cranked up to the maximum. The game currently, at the time of recording this video, does not support SLI because there is no SLI support available in the NVIDIA drivers. One assumes there will be SLI support coming possibly at launch. I mean, it may very well be out by the time that this video releases on the review embargo date. It is possible, but the pre-release version did not have it. Alright, outside of that, you got your sound sliders. Nothing really to say here. At least you got separate sliders for voice, music, and sound effects, and subtitles on or off. That's about it. Few gameplay options here and there. You can mess with the camera sensitivity, inverted if you wish, turn your vibration on or off, and you also have vehicle camera auto alignment. So this is something I would probably recommend you keep on unless you happen to be filming a video where you want to be able to sweep around cinematically. I don't really find it to be all that useful otherwise. And the HUD options are surprisingly limited, but that's really because the HUD is surprisingly limited, as you'll find out. Gamepad controls available here. I don't know if you can rebind these. It doesn't look like you can. That said, I haven't got a gamepad plugged in, so that may be why. But clicking on it doesn't seem to do anything. At least it shows you what the controls are. And these are, of course, all rebindable. As you can see right here. A lot of controls for pretty much everything. There are a couple of things that you might want to change because they sort of share the same button, usually with a hold the button down sort of setup. So Nitro, for instance, if you go to car, you'll see that Nitro is mouse 3, but so is Turbo Jump. You hold down the button for nitrous, and then you just click in your middle mouse button for turbo jump. You might want to rebind those. I also decided to rebind the grenade button, which defaults to F for some reason, when I think G is a perfectly good button for that. So outside of that, the controls seem to be fine, and there are plenty of rebinding options here, and fortunately the UI is all mouse driven, so you do not need to worry about the menus at all. It is a good port, as you might imagine, for Avalanche, who've done a pretty good job lately, and I'll talk a little bit more about performance once we actually get into the gameplay. Now, before we go in, you might notice there's something scrolling down the bottom there saying that I need to be online in Steam to access online features. This is a huge bugbear that I have right off the bat. This game has always online functionality, which you can turn off, but only by putting Steam in offline mode. There is an offline mode in the game that it will offer you when it randomly disconnects you, and it will. When you select that offline mode, it will immediately try to log back in again as soon as you attempt to access the map, which is infuriating. The login times are lengthy, they delay the launch of the game, and over the past couple of days, I have suffered repeated disconnections from their online service. This has meant that in the middle of a mission, the game has frozen in an attempt to reconnect, taking 30 seconds to upwards of a minute sometimes before saying, nope, can't do it, do you want to play offline? Now, you might think, well, why on earth do they have an online-only system? I couldn't bloody tell you. The only excuse is that there is I wouldn't even call it asymmetrical multiplayer. They've described it as asymmetrical multiplayer. I don't think it's that at all. It's just live updated leaderboards for certain activities that you can share with your friends. So it's like, your friend just beat you on longest base jump or whatever. It's useless. Utterly useless. Easily turned off. And frankly, there should be an option right here in the options menu to disable this whole damn thing permanently. The in-game option is by no means sufficient. I shouldn't be disconnected before I am offered that option. And I shouldn't have to put my Steam in offline mode because your servers are too bloody broken to even handle pre-release copies. I mean, I can't imagine how this is going to be on launch day. I hope they've fixed it by then. I did get a tweet from the developer saying, yeah, we're working on it. But honestly, let's be frank. There are plenty of games that we have blasted for very similar features, always online DRM. This may not be DRM, but it acts like it, and it gets in the way and it breaks a lot, which to me is a good enough reason to say to hell with it. So yeah, that needs to go, and I would strongly recommend, especially on launch day if you pick this up, set your Steam to offline mode. You'll thank me later. Alright, let's jump into the game, shall we? Which is instant, because all of the loading is done prior to everything. So here we go. Ah, welcome to a beautiful island paradise. And what a fairly gorgeous game it is, actually. I saw a couple of comments on various forums saying that they didn't believe that the graphical fidelity increased that much since Just Cause 2. I think you might want to take off your rose-tinted spectacles, because I went back and played Just Cause 2 with everything cranked up to maximum, and it looks nowhere near as good as this. No way. Absolutely not. Just Cause 2 looked great for the time, but this looks a hell of a lot better. It is really quite gorgeous with some lovely lighting, and, well, when you get up in the sky, you'll see exactly what I mean. There are some really annoying little issues here and there, though. You notice the flickering there, and you'll probably notice as I'm traveling rather fast that there is a fairly large degree of pop-in when it comes to this particular game. Let's get in this vehicle and just drive it around a little bit, and I'll show you what the game has to offer. Rubbish vehicles, of course. I mean, it's a little island Banana Republic paradise. Of course, it's going to have some rubbish vehicles. It also has some amazing vehicles that you can collect, I might add. And I'm also fairly sure there's a collectible whale shark in the game. No, I'm actually deadly serious. There's something called a whale shark. I haven't found it yet. I want to find it, because I think it may very well be a collectible, rideable whale shark. And if that is true, then we may have a Game of the Year on our hands. Assuming that I was the sort of person that posted those silly me, arrow reviews on Steam, and I am certainly not. Quit doing that. It's not funny. Yes, I am the arbiter of what is now funny. Deal with it. Okay, so I am currently in a town. Let's have a look at the map. Huh, pretty large. Oh my god, the size of this world. Yeah, it's pretty big. It takes a while to travel across as well when you're not using fast travel, even in the fastest aircraft available, which I can conveniently summon for you a little bit later to show you what's going on here. The world is chock full of mostly army bases and these little towns and settlements that you can take over. How do you take them over? In this case, doesn't take a lot of work at all. Most of the towns take a lot more work than this. You destroy a few chaos objects here and there, and then you raise the flag, and you have taken over the settlement. Done. That was maybe the easiest settlement takeover I've ever done. Probably because it was a very small settlement. The large cities, particularly the capitals, take a lot of work. And generally speaking, that is because, and there's a hidden object around here somewhere. There we go. There's an audio tape. That is usually because they are full of what are called chaos objects. Now, these chaos objects are usually highlighted in red, and they are things that you need to destroy in order to liberate either an army base or a city or town. The larger the army base, city, and town, generally speaking, the more chaos objects you are going to have to deal with. And these could usually be blown up in the way that you would expect things to be blown up. Explosives. Or enough bullets, sometimes. And of course, they can sometimes be pulled down by the use of the tether, the little grappling hook thing that you've got, which is really kind of neat. Or you can blow them up with planes, airstrikes, grenades, plastic explosives, and all manner of other things. There's an oil rig over there. Let's go check it out. Let's go attack it in a little seaplane. My god, look at that. You have a surprising view distance. I mean, you can see terrain miles and miles away, although a lot of the detail you notice will pop in at a fairly alarming rate. So there are maybe a couple of issues with that. Let's crash a plane into the oil rig. There we go, that should do the trick. Now, this oil rig also has a bunch of chaos objects. If we pause the game and we click this, it will show you exactly what this oppressed outpost has. There are 7 fuel tanks to blow up, 2 satellite dishes, 4 transformers, and a Doppler radar, and this is the reward. If I get it, it becomes a little resupply point. Not a particularly large thing to destroy, shouldn't really take too much work, and most of the stuff here could be fairly easily destroyed with bullets. Alternatively, I could try and, you know, it's actually just doing a good job destroying itself at the moment. Let's just toss a grenade down there. The destruction in this game is really quite impressive, especially when things start to chain together. I wonder if there's something I could do with this crane. The crane's probably not destructible, unfortunately. If I were to, say, steal this attack helicopter, I imagine I would have a relatively good time blowing up this base. Assuming this base doesn't have SAM sites on it, which it actually might. So I might want to watch out for that. Hello, there we go. Suddenly I have an attack helicopter, and now you're in a lot of trouble. Usually one of the best ways to destroy bases, grab yourself a nice big vehicle and go to town on it. Not too difficult for the most part, although the larger bases can be fairly fiddly when it comes to this whole destruction of chaos objects kind of thing. You're trying to figure out where the last little fuel tank is, and it's usually hidden under something. Thankfully, once you've blown up enough stuff, it starts to highlight them on the map, so if you're confused as to where the objects are, you can find them on the map. For some reason, the game doesn't have a mini-map, though. Just Cause 2 did, and I'm really not exactly sure why they decided it would be a good idea to take that away. I don't think it's a good idea. Maybe they just wanted a clean HUD, or at least as clean a HUD as possible, or wanted you to just hunt for the stuff, so they wanted you to dissuade you from using a map to find the chaos objects. That's possible, although I have to say it is rather annoying, considering that a lot of the content in the game actually involves destroying these chaos objects, whether it be liberating tons of settlements, which are not really optional. You have to liberate a bunch of settlements and bases in order to advance the story and actually unlock the next story mission, as well as unlock the side missions to get upgrades, so I wouldn't exactly call those optional per se. But the world is chock full of settlements and army bases. There are huge numbers of them. There are just large numbers of provinces with multiple army bases, outposts, cities, and towns, and all sorts of things. And that's a lot of content for people that enjoy that sort of thing. I'm probably going to be making some similar remarks to what I said with Mad Max when it comes to the amount of killer versus filler, and also what some people consider to be worthwhile content and what some people do not consider to be worthwhile content. Because that is really going to determine, I think, whether or not you actually enjoy this game. I just set a couple of plastic explosives off there, dived away, and that is going to explode and be awesome, and there we go, we took over the oil rig. You're going to be spending a lot of time in this game doing just that. Liberating those settlements, liberating those outposts, and some of the military bases give you access to some really fun kit. Such as attack helicopters and all that sort of thing. Reliable attack helicopters that you can call in. However, the issue that I think a lot of people are going to be having with this game is that a lot of the content involves kind of doing the same thing, blowing things up. Now you might say, well, that's par for the course for Just Cause, isn't it? And you're right, it is. There's a lot of blowing stuff up, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of really engaging in a playground of destruction. And that seems to be what they focused on with this particular title. And you can hardly blame them for that, because it's what Just Cause 2 did really well. This game has a lot of different ways to blow things up, and many of those ways are fairly creative. You start off the game with the ability to tether two objects together with your grappling hook, and then pull them together. Now, of course, this, I believe, was actually based on a mod for Just Cause 2, where you were able to get, like, infinite tethers and tether things to other things, and suddenly people realized, wow, this is a physics-based playground now. I can turn a car into a wrecking ball by carrying it on a heavy-lift helicopter or something along those lines. I can do something simple like attach a tank to a statue, put a bunch of plastic explosives on the tank, and then reel it together. And all that stuff is really, really fun. Now, of course, that's not the most efficient way to do things, not at all, but as far as I'm concerned, that, I think, is the way the game was envisioned to be played. And as far as I'm concerned, if you don't do a lot of that, you are probably going to find this game fairly repetitive, because as you've noticed, a lot of what I'm doing is kind of the same thing. This is a larger settlement, I am blowing up chaos objects for the most part. Every now and again there'll be something that's a little bit trickier to deal with, such as a monitoring system. Blissfully, anyway, this particular city does not have one, but the monitoring systems are not to be blown up, they have to be disabled in a particular order at a certain speed, and if you don't do that, well, the alarm gets sounded and you end up with a bunch of heat on you and all that sort of thing. So, not every town is the same, and certainly not every army base is the same. The army bases are a lot more diverse in terms of their destruction objectives, as opposed to the cities, which generally have the same stuff. There are always signposts to blow up, there's always a statue to blow up, there are always speakers to blow up, and occasionally there are things like generators, and you always have to take over the police station, which is sort of this little militarized area that I'm flying over right here. Usually you have to call in the rebels, which involves opening up the gates. Usually both gates for some reason. I don't know why. You can For some reason, they need both gates open in order to come in rather than just one. Sometimes you have to free a few prisoners by hacking a couple of consoles, but it's mostly blowing stuff up. And this is what the vast majority of the game is, and I would lie if I said that this did not become repetitive. So I've played, I think, about 15 hours of the game so far, and I would estimate probably about 90% of what I've been doing is liberating stuff. Not only is it because you actually need to do that in order to advance the story, and the story is pretty fun, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but all of the unlockable stuff, all of the fun stuff, you've really got to liberate these bases in order to get access to. Whether it be liberate a military base to be able to call in some cool vehicle. You know, I should actually go and do that just to show you how it works. Or whether it be liberate a settlement or a base to unlock challenges, which have to be completed in order to unlock gear mods. As opposed to Just Cause 2, where you had to find these parts and also buy a bunch of stuff. There's no currency in this game, which is probably for the best, because it encourages you to use giant transport planes as bombs if you so desire. You know what? That's a tank. I probably want to deal with that first. Let's see what we can do about grabbing this tank. They've also got rid of the QTEs for hijacking vehicles and aircraft, by the way, so you're probably fairly happy about that. There we go. Now we have a tank. Isn't this wonderful? There are, unfortunately, other tanks, but never mind. So, as I said, getting access to pretty much everything in this game involves this whole liberation, blowing up chaos objects mechanic. And I'm not gonna lie, blowing stuff up can be very enjoyable. The explosions look great. When stuff starts to chain together, when there are chain reactions, it's very enjoyable to watch. Blowing things up is very, very satisfying. But there's a lot of blowing things up. And it's a lot of blowing the same things up. I think that's kind of the main problem that I've got with it. It's less about blowing stuff up. I don't mind a game which is 100% about violence. That's actually fine. The main problem is when that violence becomes repetitive. Just Cause is not a game that was really known for its gunplay, and Just Cause 3 is really no exception to that. The gunplay is pseudo-auto-aim. You can get a mod which will allow you to do what's called precision aiming, which is basically a kind of aim down sight sort of thing, which is fine, don't get me wrong. If you're sick of relying on the auto-aim and spraying and praying, you could be a little bit more precise. You can go for headshots and all that sort of thing. But for the most part, you're going to get out of a vehicle. Kind of like that, maybe. Did I die? Looks like I may have died. I died. Never mind. Doesn't matter, because death actually has no implication on this game whatsoever. And in fact, death actually clears your heat, which means that you should probably die when you get heat level 5. It makes it a lot easier to take a base. Anyway, the gunplay is pretty loose. You just sort of spray in the vague direction of the enemy and it usually dies. You have access to dual-wield weapons. You have access to a two-handed weapon as well as a special weapon, which is usually a launcher, which will do something like this. Hopefully blowing other things up in the process, but you get the idea. And there are some pretty fun weapons that you can get, such as this sort of multiple homing rocket launcher thing. I think it's called the Fire Leech, which is unlockable. There's some pretty fun stuff. Admittedly, the selection of guns available is not exactly amazing. I think that there's not a huge point in having a bunch of different guns when a lot of them kind of handle and feel the same. As I said, the gunplay is so loose, for the most part, that it doesn't really matter what gun you're really using. You can be fairly accurate with these weapons as well as the regular two-handed rifles and all that sort of thing, so it doesn't really matter all that much. It's really down to personal preference. So as a result, you know, you've got so-so gunplay, which Just Cause has always sort of suffered from. So really, you want to be reliant on explosions to do the majority of the work. It's the most efficient way of blowing things up and actually getting the chaos objectives done anyway. You can blow up fuel tanks with guns, but it takes a while. Problem is, as I said, you're blowing up the same stuff sort of over and over and over again, and you're fighting the same enemies sort of over and over and over again, in a way that actually isn't all that challenging. I mean, you can see the amount of bullets I can take. More often than not, you die to some ridiculous explosion, like you get hit by a tank shell, or 2 tank shells at once, and that's what automatically kills you. But the amount of bullets you can take is ludicrous, and even if you take a lot of damage, you just really need to start using your grappling hook to get out of the way, and you'll regenerate your health very quickly. I think in a game that's this chaotic, maybe that's... I love doing that. Maybe that's a bit justifiable. You know, you don't really want to worry about taking so many bullets when you're attempting to fight 20 guys at once. That's fine. I don't really know what's with the flickering and the lighting there. That's okay. I don't really mind that too much. But if the meat of your game is going to be blowing things up, then you might want to try and do your best to diversify how you do that. And the game has a bunch of ways to do it. Admittedly, most of those ways are completely impractical in the middle of combat, which is kind of the main problem. The game encourages encourages you to try new things. Like, why don't you attach booster rocket explosives to a car and crash it into this objective? Well, the main reason I don't do that is because I'm in the middle of combat, so setting that up would be an absolute nightmare, and it takes 3 times as long as just pointing an RPG at the target and blowing it up that way. That's the main problem. Doing cool stuff is, of course, the best part of this game. You know, if I set some booster rockets on that thing, and I can then activate the booster rockets, and it'll send the vehicle sort of flying off in that direction, as you can see, and doing crazy physics-based stuff. This is great fun, but you're not going to do this in the middle of a combat zone. And once you're in combat zone, you're going to be fighting until the objectives are done. Right now, I just need to release one more jail cell. I'm not sure where that jail cell is. It's probably around here somewhere. So, a lot of the really cool, fun stuff that actually encourages you to be creative is so impractical that in the middle of a combat zone, you can't really do it. You can only really do it when there's no heat on you, and you're only going to be able to do that once, and then people are like, whoa, there's stuff exploding in our town, better try and hunt you down with tanks. That sounds like a good idea. I mean, I've just got all the heat off me for whatever reason there, but hey, and we raise the flag and we take another settlement. And it's a shame, because when the game allows you to be creative, you can do some great stuff. The tethering means that you can do all sorts of awesome things. And really, the sky's the limit in terms of your imagination there, especially once you unlock additional tethers and tether strength. The problem is, for some reason, I can't figure out exactly where you go to do that. I've done over a third of the game's story content. There's 3 acts, and I've done the first act, and I'm sort of getting into the second one. I've done a couple of missions there. And I've also done a ton of settlements and bases. I've even taken out, like, 2 central commands, which are the huge, really difficult to take out bases, and unlocked some amazing stuff in the process, which I'm going to go show you once I found a place that I can land it. And yet, I haven't got a single challenge to update and upgrade my tethers. So if I go to gear mods right here, you'll see what's available. Under tethers, you'll see, hey, max tethers, you can go up to 6, so you can tether up to 6 things together, so you can create stupid stuff, like right there. Hey, I'm gonna tether a bunch of things to a helicopter and use them as a wrecking ball. If you want to be able to do all of this stuff, you've got to do scrapyard scramble challenges. I haven't found a single one of these. In fact, I'm pretty sure there isn't one on the map yet. I don't know what settlements you have to, or army bases you have to actually unlock to get these, but I've unlocked a ton of challenges, and I haven't got any of these. You know, if I go to missions and challenges, you'll see, look at, these are the number of missions I've completed, these are the number of missions in the game. I've unlocked 50 of 112 challenges. There are only 4 scrapyard scrambles in the game. I don't know where any of them are. No, I really don't. All I know is that, yeah, you can earn the tether gears in these provinces, but I don't know where. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't even give you a hint. So a lot of the really cool stuff that you probably want to do, you're going to have to work fairly hard to find, or of course read an FAQ to find out exactly where those little objects are. Outside of that, the gear mods are unlocked via challenges, as I mentioned before. So I've got some stuff here, I've got some upgrades for my land vehicles, and these are all automatically applied to any vehicle that you get via Rebel Drop, which is done here. So if I want to request stuff, I can request all sorts of things. Let me just get to the ground first before I request something fun. There we go. Don't worry, it's Rico, he can survive that. If we go to Rebel Drop, I can pick from a bunch of weapons. These are the weapons that are available. Not a huge amount under two-handed and dual wield, I gotta be honest, although there are a couple of exotics that you can unlock here. These are generally found via collectibles in the game. Special weapons, which of course you can get via drop. There's even this airstrike marker I can get here. There's some really fun stuff there. Pretty sure there's a nuke launcher in there as well. And then vehicles, of which there are a huge variety. Most of these you have to collect by bringing them to a garage, and then they can just spawn them wherever you like. So if you want to drive a supercar, you can do that. Most of the time, though, you're probably going to want to be in the air because it's the most practical way of getting around this huge, huge island paradise. So you're probably going to want a sea vehicle, maybe a helicopter or a plane. Like that. I'll show you that later if I can find a place to land it. It's ridiculous. Let's grab a bomber jet. There we go. And you might think, well, you can't take off here. I beg to differ. This is just cause. Yes, I can. So you unlock those vehicles by doing challenges and completing the various... It exploded, didn't it? Why is it on fire? You see... This happens randomly, by the way. You get your vehicle, and then suddenly it explodes for no apparent reason. Okay, that's now going to be on a cooldown timer. Let's get a more interesting plane. Let's get this plane. Okay, let's maybe try and drop this plane instead, because that one exploded for no reason. Don't know why. Let's give it another shot. And unlocking the military bases and everything... Why? I couldn't even tell you. I don't know why that exploded, but that's actually really damn annoying. Alright, let's try a helicopter then, or something along those lines. I only have one beacon available now. I've wasted 2 for no bloody reason. Acquiring these is fun. Absolutely. The problem that I have with the game is that acquiring the upgrades is anything but. I've talked a lot about the issues that a lot of open world games have. You know, they're expected to be filled full of fun challenges and diversions and side quests. In order to do a lot of the really fun stuff in this game, you need to be able to do those challenges. The problem is, they seem to have made some of the most boring side activities. Incredibly dull, surprisingly so. And I think maybe it's just because the main meat of the game is so bombastic, with you parachuting down at the middle of a base, fire raining everywhere, and blowing stuff up, attaching things to other things. So when you finally do that, you think, yeah, cool, they're gonna unlock some really fun side activities for me that are all about crazy destruction. No, they're not. What they're gonna do is give you things like air races. Now, you're not racing against other people here, you're just racing through hoops. So, a better version of Superman 64, basically. If I zoom back here and go over here, I've got plenty of challenges unlocked. There are wingsuit challenges, which are surprisingly tricky. Again, fly through rings. Drive through rings. Boat through rings. Yes, there are a couple of those as well. These are surprisingly uninspired. And they're actually not that much fun. I'm gonna be frank. Now you might think, oh, well, that's just the races. What about the destruction challenges? Well, this is where the game somehow falls flat on its face. And I don't know how it managed this. You would think that a destruction challenge would be something fun. You know, you want to see something like that. You know, you go play any of the Saints Row games, play any of the GTA games when they do their kill frenzy and kill sprees. They're amazing. They're really, really fun, chaotic experiences. The weird thing about Just Cause is that the challenges are actually less chaotic and more sanitized than the main gameplay is. What I'm going to have to do here is get in this tank and then blow up red objects until the timer runs out, in a simulated kind of base environment where there are no enemies whatsoever. This is what you do. You drive around and blow up these things. This is surprisingly dull. I mean, the tank challenge is probably one of the most fun. One of the more annoying ones, in fact, actually any of the fighter jet ones are really damn annoying because you have to angle your jet very, very carefully in order to hit these specific objects, because most of the bases are not actually destructible. I can't blow up this building here. I can only blow up things like guard posts and I mean, I don't think I can blow up those little huts and things like that, and vehicles, of course, and then the red chaos objects, some of which are huge and awesome. But this is all this challenge is, blow stuff up, and do so with precision. And that's the weird thing, because this game is about chaos, not precision. Oh, why would I want precision? Why would I want to drive around in a slow tank when I know, oh god, right, well I've blown up these objects, now I've got to go find the other ones. Even blowing up the little huts, while I suppose kind of satisfying to do aesthetically, really isn't that much fun to do and doesn't actually reward you in terms of your rating. And it's just a minute and a half of this. Now, the actual taking of the base was more chaotic, more explosive, and more enjoyable than the challenge that you unlock after the fact. That shouldn't be the case. And I think it really is just because the way that Just Cause works best is when you are embroiled in chaos. This isn't chaos. There are no enemies. There are no people anywhere. I'm not causing chaos. I'm blowing up a bunch of props. That's all I'm really doing here. And the problem is you've got to do these in order to get access to the gear mods. Almost none of the side challenges which you need to get those gear mods are actually that fun. And yet you have to go through these bloody motions in order to unlock the stuff which is. Bad idea. I just don't really know how they managed to make such boring side activities. The only one that I've enjoyed up to this point is this sort of a bombing run kind of thing where you get... I can't even get up this hill because my tank is apparently too slow. It's a sort of bombing run thing where you rig a vehicle with an explosive engine and you have to drive it through a little obstacle course and then blow up a little army base or whatever with it. That's pretty fun. Everything else is dull as dishwater. And yet you've got to do it. Oh god, it's so disappointing. I don't really understand how they managed to muck that up, really. I don't have any beacons, so I can't summon any vehicles now. which is a little annoying, but hey, I'm sure we can just grab one from this base somewhere. Why must these side activities be as dull as they are? I just don't know. I don't mind filling a world full of side activities. That's cool. I mean, I can ignore a lot of it, but in games like this, you can't really ignore it because there's so much fun stuff locked behind those side activities. All of those upgrades and mods that will allow you to really perform the crazy stuff, they're all locked behind that wall. And those walls are fairly infuriating, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, that's a bit of a problem, especially when you stack that up with the fact that, as I said before, this game is mostly just about liberating army bases, liberating outposts, and occasionally doing story missions and finding collectibles. I don't want to say it, but I found quite a lot of Just Cause 3 to be a bit boring. And I think a lot of you are going to turn around and say, well, you're just not playing it right. And I get that argument. I genuinely do. The game does have the tools for craziness. And it's not like it's a bad video game. I mean, there's some amazing stuff in here. I haven't spoken about how awesome the wingsuit system is and the way that you can transition between the grapple boost, the parachute, and the wingsuit. I mean, it's not exactly original. It's not like it's something that the Batman games haven't done. But flying around this beautiful island is amazing. It really is. It's so genuinely gorgeous. It's so colorful and bright, and surprisingly enough, the island seems packed with activity all the time, which shocks me because of how large the game area is. I never seem to be without something interesting in the distance to fly to. There's a city over there, there's a town over there, there's an unlockable sort of monastery over there, there's a naval base over there that I can go take out. Even off in the distant distance, you see what appears to be like a mining colony. There's so much to see. And traveling around this world is very enjoyable, to the point where I actually don't find the flare system for fast travel, which is a renewable resource, to be all that annoying. Some people are going to say, well, why the hell is there a flare system? Why do you limit the fast travel? Well, honestly, I have a feeling that the game really just wants you to experience the world that they've created, and they want you to travel around it. And honestly, doing so is hella fun. It really is. Whether it be via helicopter, plane, or just gliding around and comboing the 3 movement-based abilities together to actually fly at high speed. Super fun. Very enjoyable to do. And yet, then you've got these little challenges to get access to the other cooler stuff. I mean, this one is even worse. Hey, shoot things with a machine gun for a minute and a half. Yay. And a lot of these objects take a ton of shots to actually bring down as well, which is even more infuriating. This isn't enjoyable. This is a waste of my time. And yet I really want those damn gear mods. Ugh, oh man. I think they needed to take a few lessons from Red Faction Guerrilla when it came to destruction-based mini-games and side objectives. That game did that a hell of a lot better, I have to say. It's not that watching things explode in this game isn't fun. It's just that the scenario that they have put together for it is not that fun. Remember when I mentioned earlier that the game is at its best when you're doing really cool, crazy, chaotic things? Comboing the tethers with the explosives and explosive barrels together? Yeah, but the thing is, in these time-based challenges, you don't have time for any of that. That's the stupid thing about it. It's like, the best part of the game, you're actively encouraging me not to do, repeatedly. Silly, silly idea. Why? Why on earth would you ever? I mean, I'm gonna get like 1 gear here, maybe 2 for this challenge. I know I'm not doing all that well, but it's not like this challenge is all that interesting. I'd rather be blowing up actual vehicles with people in them and destroying an actual army base rather than this facade here. Anyway, I think I've hammered on about that point a little bit long enough. Maybe I'm sounding a little bit too negative about this game, because don't get me wrong, Just Cause 3 does a lot of things very right, whether it be in terms of its performance, which I found to be acceptable. As I said, it doesn't have SLI support yet, but since the pre-release patch, I haven't had it drop below 60 on my system. That's at 1080p. If you want to play it at 2560, 1440 or something higher like that, then you may need to use SLI, and hopefully that support will be available on launch there. But the game runs pretty well. it is not without its bugs. I've had several problems with missions not doing what they're supposed to. An early mission involved me defending my brother Mario, which I did so well apparently that the game didn't realize I completed the mission and then just got stuck. I had to kill him and restart the mission. I've had that happen to a number of different outposts where it said, yeah, you've got to liberate the police station, but the objectives required to do that never triggered and never spawned, so I wasn't able to liberate the police station. So there's definitely a few bugs there. I've also found the camera to be fairly annoying. I think it's a little bit too close most of the time, and it has this annoying tendency of getting stuck in terrain and getting way too close, particularly when you're in the middle of an explosion. I'd also like to know exactly why the game doesn't have a health indicator. I don't mind the regenerating health. In fact, I think that's probably a very good idea in a game like this, which is all about blowing stuff up with gay abandon. But why don't I have a health bar? Just Cause 2 had it, and had regenerating health. That was fine. I don't know why they've decided to get rid of it now. I don't know how much damage I'm really taking or in how much danger I'm really in. So that's not particularly great in terms of design either. And where did the minimap go? Again, couldn't tell you why exactly that disappeared either. All right, we need to go and find some more. If I head to a beacon outpost, I should be able to get some more beacons and then hopefully show you a fun vehicle, which I've singularly failed to do up to this point. I believe there's some beacons over here, so I can just fast travel over there. But otherwise, the game performs well and it's a great PC port. You'll probably prefer the handling of vehicles with a controller. I know a lot of people do, although I personally haven't had any problems handling anything with keyboard and mouse, but I would probably prefer to drive and fly with a controller. The wingsuit's probably a little bit easier to use with that as well, so yeah. You can use a controller if you like or not. Thankfully, this is the sort of game where the shooting, as I said, is so imprecise that having a mouse and keyboard really actually isn't all that important. So you may enjoy this more with a controller. It is entirely possible. I'm going to try and find a place to summon this where it won't bloody explode. That down there should do the job. God, the simple joys of just wingsuiting around this area, though, are incredible. As I said, there's quite a lot of pop-in. You probably noticed there's a reasonable degree of that, especially when it comes to vehicles. I mean, the view distance is amazing, but when it comes to individual details, things like hay bales and cars and little details spawning in, they actually do spawn in a fairly obnoxious manner. They're very noticeable. The game doesn't do a great job of hiding that, so it's a little bit unfortunate. Damn, I can't get any of these vehicles. I could spawn this, but I don't have anywhere near enough space to do that, so I guess I'm just bringing in a helicopter then. Unfortunate, but there you go. But I don't have too many bad things to say about the PC port or the performance. At high detail, it is definitely a resource hog. It is a very good-looking game, so I would imagine that people need to expect that to play it at the highest detail, they're going to need a pretty crazy system. You know, 980 Ti, you could probably get away with it on a 970, but you're going to need a pretty high-end graphics card to crank everything up. But as with all Avalanche games, it's very scalable, so I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about that. Here's the thing about Just Cause 3. It's a sequel that doesn't really try to change all that much, and seems to really lack any big-ticket features. The sort of things that Just Cause 3 does, Just Cause 2 sort of already did, particularly with mods. The big tethering system was inspired by mods, and yet they haven't added anything such as multiplayer or co-op. I think this game would actually benefit a great deal from this, and they've said repeatedly, well, no, we're not going to add co-op into the game. Like, okay. We're going to focus on single-player experience. Like, alright then. Here's the thing. Blowing stuff up is always going to be more fun with friends. Doing races against each other would be pretty good. Competing there, that would be awesome. Having two-person vehicles. I mean, having someone pilot a vehicle and then have somebody else on top of the vehicle shooting or whatever. There are several boats which have multiple gun emplacements on them. You can get the AI to do something with them, but outside of that, you know, it'd be really nice if I could have a co-op partner to do all this stuff with, and yet that's not a feature in Just Cause 3. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what is then? Like, what huge big-ticket features does this sequel have over Just Cause 2? And the answer is actually it doesn't have that many. It's got a bigger world, it's shinier. The physics engine is a little bit more creative. There are some bigger vehicles. I mean, the air transport, which I'll try and show you when I find an open enough area to summon it in, is amazing. I mean, you can actually walk inside it while it's flying. You can fit 10 ground vehicles in it. I am not kidding. I mean, that's incredible. The larger boats, such as the Corvettes, you can actually walk around. I mean, they're not just things that you pop in and out of. They are actually fully modeled vehicles. So there's some amazing stuff there, but outside of what Just Cause 2 offers, Just Cause 3 really does seem to be offering more of the same a little bit better. And for a lot of people, that's going to be totally fine. They just want another big world to explore and blow up. That's cool. But I really do genuinely think that Just Cause, maybe more than most... Oh, there we go. Maybe more than most open world games could really use co-op. I think it would help a great deal. And it's actually a bit of a shame that they didn't decide to make that a big feature this time around. I think that would have been worth the asking price alone. And a lot of the complaints that I have about this game, such as the boring side missions and the very repetitive destruction, would be alleviated with the addition of a co-op partner. Because you would have more hands to work with. You want to do some crazy stuff? Cool. Great. If I want to strap a bunch of explosives to a cow, then attach it to a helicopter, and then use it as an explosive wrecking ball, that's a lot easier when you got two people to do it with, especially in a chaotic area where everybody's shooting at you. Unfortunately, you don't have a co-op partner, so you're just gonna have to kind of deal with it on your own. Now, I'm gonna be honest, racing through hoops on your own is not that much fun. And it's tricky too, I've got to admit, but yeah, this is not that enjoyable. Yes, I get to see the sights, but really, a race with no competition isn't a race. Now, this is a bunch of checkpoints. So, I do have concerns about the additional features that are available here in Just Cause 3 versus its predecessor. If you're wanting more of the same, then yeah, there's a lot of that. Great. If you just want more of the same, don't worry, Just Cause 3's got you covered. I mean, there's a huge amount of that. The amount of outposts and army bases and villages that you have to take over, I mean, there's huge numbers of those. There's hours and hours and hours and hours of that kind of content. But what else is what I'm left asking? You know, where's the real advancement of this particular series? Well, the answer is there's actually not a lot of it, which is a bit unfortunate, really. Don't worry, he's Rico, he can take it. I'm left with a sort of unfortunate conclusion whereby I see potential for greatness. And I have a feeling that people that just want to use this as a sandbox, you're going to have quite a lot of fun with that. You can do some great stuff. You genuinely can. You can do some amazing stuff, some hilarious stuff. Some stuff that's buggy as hell. But never mind. I can attach this to this. No problem. I can then pull them together. I could attach rocket boosters to this particular vehicle. Admittedly, if I want the better rocket boosters, I have to do, yep, you guessed it, a bunch more challenges. I can do all of this stuff. And if you indulge in this, and if that's what you do a lot of, I think you'll have an absolute blast. Not doing things the most efficient way... Sorry, civilian. Thankfully, there's no penalty for that. Not doing things the most efficient way is the way to have the most fun with this game. You've kind of got to make your own fun. Yes, they provide a sandbox, but they do go out of their way in many instances to prevent you from doing things in anything but the most efficient of ways. And that's a bit of a shame. Because I think that if they were a bit more lenient with that, then there would be a lot more room for creativity. And the systems in the game allow for that. Absolutely. Don't know what the hell's up with the shadows there. They really do allow for it. But they just seem to discourage it so very, very much. And I don't really know why you would do that. Let's see if I can summon this thing. I don't think there's enough space to land this anywhere around here. I don't think you understand just how big this is, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. The game to me is a bit of a contradiction. It seems to me that it would have... Yes. That is the vehicle. I don't know if it's broken. It's broken. That's a shame. Again, I'd love to show you that, but there are so few areas in the game that you can actually summon that plane and not have it immediately explode that you don't really get to use it all that often. That's good. It is a contradiction. It says create chaos, and yet the chaos is so regimented. Blow up this in this very specific way every time. Yes, the army bases are a bit varied in terms of their destruction objectives, but they all start to sort of blur together. And then when it comes to the side objectives, they're anything but chaos. They're anything but. They're sanitized. They're clean. They're actually rather dull, and there's really only one way to do them. That's not chaotic. That's the exact opposite of that. That's linear. That's uninspired. The game is at its best when you are causing genuine, legitimate chaos and having a bunch of fun there, but why the game insists on trying to have you do that as efficiently as possible in the most boring way possible, I cannot imagine. This game gets in the way of having fun a lot. And I think that it would certainly benefit from opening up a lot of things like that. Like, here's a suggestion for an improvement. Why do specific gear mods have to be locked behind specific challenges, and why does progression have to actually be linear in that regard? If I want to prioritize getting 6 tethers immediately, why can't I just do that? You know, why are the gears separate? I mean, why aren't the gears just a currency that you can use to unlock whatever you like? I mean, you see all of these up to the top here? This is the next land vehicle unlock, and then I go here, different gears here, different gears here. Why can't I just earn gears by doing challenges, then spend them on what the hell I prioritize? If I want to prioritize my fun, if I want those explosive rocket boosters so that I can do some crazy stuff with vehicles, why can't I do that now and not God knows how far down the line here? It's like one of the ending unlocks. I've got to do a bunch more of these boring challenges to get there. I have a feeling someone is going to mod this game and unlock everything, or change the way that these systems work, and I think people are going to have a blast when they do that. I think it's the same thing that happened with Just Cause 2. Once people decided, you know what, we want unlimited tethers, and we want unlimited bombs, and all that sort of thing, people found that to be hella fun. But I think that perhaps Avalanche hasn't quite settled on what makes a good explosive sandbox yet. And they're a little bit too afraid of actually cutting players loose and letting them do what they want. There are still all of these objectives to do. There is still a ton of content. The problem is, of course, as I mentioned, that content is very, very repetitive and very samey. Thankfully, the game does have a pretty enjoyable, if cheeseballish story, and quite a few of those missions are very well designed and allow for some awesome situations. Previous mission, I was in a boat that happened to have nitrous and a turbo boost, and I was able to jump over minefields and do all that sort of awesome stuff. That was great. I enjoyed that a lot. But that's not what the majority of the game is, funnily enough. The majority of the game isn't actually the main story mission. It's taking over these outposts and settlements. Is Just Cause 3 a good game? After 50 or so minutes. Yeah, it is. It is a fun sandbox. It is a fun open world game. But it suffers from so many of the trappings that open world games have been suffering from over the last few years. And it doesn't really seem to have figured out how to fix any of them yet. It's sort of just going through the motions and following the same formula as other games. And I think that Just Cause 3 would benefit greatly from breaking from that formula entirely. I think that would absolutely be the best thing to do. Let's see if we can actually summon a damn plane without it exploding this time. Ugh. Damn annoying when that happens. Nope, they're still on cooldown. Never mind. Just go crazy. Stop putting so many limits in the way of players. And it lets you travel all over the island immediately. I went to one of the bases halfway across the world and unlocked a bomber jet really early on, and that was great. It's like the game shows inklings of willingness to let you just cut loose and do that. If you want the bomber jet an hour into the game, you can get it. But if I want the tether mod, I can't. You know, if I want nitrous level 2 for my cars, I can't yet. It's like, why, you know, why the double standards there exactly? I have to wonder. I really do. I don't know why it's requiring me to do all of these things in order to unlock the fun stuff. Half the time, the game's like go crazy, and the other half of it is... well, not just yet. I'm afraid you've got to do a bunch of arbitrary challenges first before we let you play with this toy. Really? Oh dear. So, conclusion. This game's got a lot going for it. It's got a ton of content if you like 90% of your content being blow up this village, blow up this army base. And some of that content is quite challenging. Some of it is admittedly very easy, but taking on the big central command bases and the huger cities, yeah, it's pretty challenging. And it's quite a lot of fun to figure out the best way and the best angle of attack. If you enjoy doing that over and over again, you're going to have a whale of a time. It's also great for those who want to do crazy stuff when the game allows you to do it. The problem is they're most likely going to have to go through a ton of busy work in order to get to the point in the game where they're able to play with all those toys, which is a real shame. I'm hoping the first thing to come out is a cheat to unlock everything immediately. It's a beautiful game. It is a technically accomplished, if somewhat buggy game. As demonstrated. What on earth happened there? What happens if I get out of the boat now? Oh my god, wow. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I haven't seen that one before, but the game is kind of full of stuff like that. I want to tell you that it's amazing. Like, I want to tell you that it's best game ever, you're gonna have a ton of fun. But I think it's gonna be very dependent on how much repetition you're willing to tolerate, how many side activities you're willing to do, and also how much of your own fun you're willing to make, rather than just doing things in the most efficient way possible. If you're the sort of person that thinks it's hilarious, and I would certainly not disagree with you, to attach explosive boosters to a wheelie bin and have it blow up Statue of El Presidente, great. I think you're gonna find a lot to like here. I just wish the game didn't get in the way of that so often. I just wish that the game encouraged you to do that stuff rather than punished you for doing it. Some of the systems in this game I don't think are very well conceived. And a lot of the side activities I find to be extremely dull. And that's a shame. I'm hoping there'll be a mod that comes out that unlocks everything, and you know what, once there is, I'll probably come back and have a whale of a time with Just Cause 3, tethering stuff together, attaching cows to windmills, all that sort of thing. But right now, the game's like, you gotta do 20 more hours of side activities before we let you do that. And you know what I want to do? I want to turn around and tell that game, sod off. Who are you and what have you done with my Just Cause? It's a bit of a mixed opinion, isn't it? But that would be my impression of Just Cause 3. It is a mixed bag. A mixed experience. With, honestly, not a great deal learned from the predecessors. Just Cause 2 was a huge jump in quality from Just Cause 1, and Just Cause 3 doesn't quite feel that it is. It doesn't feel like such a big advancement. It feels a little safe. And I'm gonna be honest, if I were the developer of a game that was billing itself as open world chaos and shenanigans, the term safe would be the last word I'd want my game described as. Just Cause 3, ladies and gentlemen, available for $60, or your regional equivalent. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to click the like button. If you did not, express your displeasure with the dislike. And I will see you next time.